by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
This is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, so the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. It is the 8th day of May 2023. My name is Philomena Mastiko. It's a Monday, getting ready to go up and about our businesses as usual. The weekend, well, welcome back from that one. Like we did say, indeed, sparking a lot of mixed reactions from a number of Ugandans, not just by only one incident. Felix, there is a lot that has been happening. The other week we're looking at the extreme, actually we had a discussion about the extreme weather events that are taking over not only Uganda but also Rwanda, and now in the weekend we actually did see some of these weather events, torrential floods that hit the Democratic Republic of Congo, and right now I can tell you that more than 200 people have been displaced because of that. But also looking at that, we know that it comes with a number of impacts. It comes with a lot of changes eventually, especially when it comes to the people who are in these heat areas. Now, our very own ministry, because of all these happenings, of all these heavy rains that we have been experiencing in the last couple of weeks, they did come out to actually ask all Ugandans who live on top of mountainous areas to vacate those places, and they have been asked to move to churches in the meantime. Now, when we look at the mountainous areas, last week we did see the Chigezi region being quite hit by this. We also saw part of the road, I think that is from Kabale, connecting Kabale to Chisoro, really breaking into half, or the half of it breaking off, something like that. Yes, so it was really bad. Of course, the Ministry of Works and UNRWA have decided to make it a point to make sure that they work on it and make sure it's back to perfection. But when you look at all of this, Felix, do you think we'll ever be ready for extreme weather events like this, for disaster like this?
You see, that's why it is called disaster. I don't think there's anyone who's ready for disaster, honestly and truly. And it is not surprising that we are not any different as a country. We face these challenges in the same way. However, other colleagues would be more prepared than us, or they invest more, or they facilitate more some of these challenges than probably some of us. And this could be ideal in some of the most visible aspects, like the financial challenges we struggle with as a country, and also being that we have quite divided issues to make investment of. So that could be one of the reasons. But also, when you talk about some of the advisories that have come in most recent, Philomena, you will notice that these are all geared towards appreciating saving lives of Ugandans. But we must agree that this is a three-way approach, and that's the approach we must do. The government has a role to play, societies have a role to play, so do communities.
True.
Now, keeping in mind also that regardless of the fact that the bigger duty may fall on government, but it is the people who lose their lives, the Ugandans who lose their lives. Now that also ideally means that they must have an effort. One, the recommendation of displacement has been the most ideal recommendation since we struggled with some of these disasters and all. It is the most clear-cut recommendation that you displace these people from one place to another where it's more safe. But we talked about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a long-term solution, but very expensive, almost unaffordable for government. Now, in the short term, what they are doing, they ask people to go to places,
go to churches, go
areas.
to, yes, some of these supposedly communal places where they can take refuge in the meantime, as
I
we're
like
trying
the
to
fact that you're
yes.
using the word in the meantime.
In the meantime.
So that after probably the danger comes down, they go back.
They go back to
in the meantime, as we wait for the rain to stop, and they go back.
But the question is, when? When does that happen?
Of course, seasons will come.
Also,
the rainy season is going to get done, and then we shall get into. But then, are they going to be moving like that?
The
when
cycle,
the rain
because
comes,
yes,
they go to
we
the
cannot get rid of
and
disaster. Yes,
and we don't know when
we don't know when
fall.
it will befall us. So how do we get to break that cycle? That every time we have heavy rains, every time we have landslides, every time we're lucky that we don't have are they called earthquakes? The bad ones.
You have not seen such.
Yeah, we've only, I think, have tremors, and that's the closest. But now what happens when they fall onto us? Are we going to continue doing that? Are we becoming too comfortable with this kind of pattern, with this kind of cycle?
Comfort is not the word we can use. I don't think we're coming comfortable, but we have failed, or we are not dealing with it as a real threat. We are dealing with it as something we can fix. You know how we fixing, but it's not a threat we want to appreciate, because if we look at it as a threat, then it would be much easier for us to know how to deal with it. There have been a couple of other contributed solutions given by experts, and for example, we have been talking about people not cultivating on the banks of rivers. On those slopes of hills and mountains, and these have been time and again issues. But who is overseeing this? Okay, should it be government officials? Should it be police to enforce? Like, we keep on putting ourselves in harm's way consistently. Now, you saw what is happening in Toroko, the river Basit banks. People have impassable, like, all these things are leading up to the challenges that we face, but we're not talking about a permanent solution. And that's what I was saying earlier, that how about government moves ahead to gazette some of this land? As they gazette part of the land in national parks, forest reserves, like, we should gazette these banks, gazette these areas so that they are not for human settlement. By policy, by law.
Yes.
Because the outcomes are quite heinous, and that much we have seen. So how do we deal with this? But rather, and this, we are dealing with it not in conclusion, but in a way of fixing, and that causes threats again for us.
So does that come with like an alternative if a government has gazetted these areas or has asked people not to carry out any activity, whether agriculture, whether settlement, to mention but a few, does that come with an alternative? Would that be the ideal thing to do? Or even, do we have alternatives? Because yes, we'll be looking at alternatives, but are they available? Do we have any other options?
The percentages may give you a clear picture in this, because if you do appreciate that there are people who settle in these places who are still, even today, even tomorrow, they are new settlers because there is nothing that stops them from settling. You can talk about the threat, but until it has happened, for them it is simply word threat. But there are people who are there and have owned this land for... So there are all different types of ownerships when you come, but you must stop. Because in the next 5 years, if you don't, the numbers will definitely
grow. Yes.
Because population is also growing. So you must start somewhere. If it takes you to make some compensations, you can do that. But the more time you take minus not doing what you're supposed to do, before you know, you're going to get dug down.
Well, we're looking at disaster preparedness. How ready is Uganda to handle especially cases like this? And we're looking at in terms of the populations that are situated in these disaster-prone areas. Right now, we have been experiencing some heavy rains in the last weeks, and they have been so extreme that we did notice that people's property is being destroyed. We're looking at landslides. The other day we saw in the Kigezi region. But this is not the first time this is happening. We have seen in the eastern part of the country, that is in Bududa, where we've had multiple cases of landslides. We have seen people lose their property. We have lost a couple of people. We have lost animals. There is a lot that has been lost, and there is still a lot that is at stake, because it's not a given. It's not guaranteed that we are done with the disaster. But are we ready as a country to handle this? How prepared are we when we talk about the budget, when we talk about the finances? Do we have the finances to be able to settle these people or to resettle them in terms of compensation, in terms of relocating them? Do we have the manpower to do that? Do we have, do the people appreciate these efforts? Because there is also that big, I think this is again one of the biggest challenges, how people respond to this. Even when they know that the areas where they stay or the areas where they're carrying out their activities, they're all disaster prone, every now and then they will stick to these places. How do we get these different Ugandans to appreciate how bad the situation is? Well, do let us know. Get onto our socials, hashtag UBC GMU, that is on Twitter, and of course WhatsApp platform 0709 602 592. Now, Felix, one thing I've never understood is why most Ugandans don't actually really want to relocate. And I do understand they know how dangerous this is. I don't think there is anybody who wants their life to be taken away by a landslide, but regardless they still stay in these places. Why are they, can I call it, for lack of a better word, adamant or stubborn? Is that the right word?
No. You know, Philomena, you're talking about moving to
yes.
where? To where? So, you know, people who live in these places, let's not try and put our heads in the sand. The kind of people who dwell in these places, you know the people we are talking about. These are people who are not very well off, for starters. One. Two, these are people who are surviving. So the option of them moving must be truly completed, not by them. Because they'll tell you honestly, to where? Probably they got this land, they just also forced themselves on some of these land areas.
Yes.
Now, some of them, as I told you, have business going on in this area. For example, land cultivation, animal rearing. Some of them have become ancestral homes, and they have got into that attachment. You see, the big question is where? You're telling them to move, but where is the alternative? They don't, like, you've seen, remember we saw cases where some of them went to church land, and then others went to government offices, I think, the spaces in the compound. But that can't be your home forever. There are no structures there, okay? There are no toilets, every facilities are not enough. So people have gotten to a point where they're like, what comes here is what it is. We shall take what happens to us.
Yes.
And that's sad. And we have lost people. And because of these rains that have intensified most recent, because as I've told you, well, as I said last week, if people are dying in Kampala, the center, the capital, because of these extreme weather events in terms of rain and floods, what happens to the ones in the villages? Floods are also in Kampala, just so you know.
Of course they
You may
are.
have forgotten.
They definitely are in Kampala.
And the effects are quite high. Go to Waise. Go to Kalere. Go to Kosovo. Go to Natete. Go to around Chengera, Kabojja, that side.
Even around Namamve, yes.
Go to Namamve. Here in Chambogo, where there's UNRWA around there.
Yes.
Go inside Banda, that side of Acholi quarters. The problem is bigger than just, in fact, we need to sit and discuss this matter of weather, its effects, away from just throwing it as a small issue to the Ministry of National, of Disaster Preparedness. No, we need to discuss and find a way forward. Some of these deaths we see are human-led.
Yes.
If not most of them. When you come to the floods we have in this beautiful town, they will tell you there's someone building in the swamp. What we saw in Masaka last time, go to Ruera. It's no longer a catchment. People are doing businesses there. You find someone farming in that wetland on over 100 acres rice. That's no longer a catchment. People, there's a time where, in fact, sand now is the biggest business in Rueda.
People extracting sand, yes. Every
There's
now and then you
even a name
look
of
at
sand called
yes.
Rueda. It is whitish, Agarachi Rueda. But that's not the purpose of those. Those are catchments. You come to Kampala. Some of the government offices are built in swamps. It's surprising. You see where UNRWA is there in Chambogo. No wonder whenever it floods, the water goes up to their offices.
Yeah, because so they always said nature has a way to catch up. Yes, so you cannot really do away with
you
it.
Go to Lubiji here. They are selling plots. The disposal methods. How do people dispose of these plastic bottles? All these things work together towards the challenges we are talking about. We ignore one of them, we shall get back to the problem. And we need to stop being post-service people. We'll have to do things after events have happened. Landslides have happened. Hey, let's do that. All these things. We need to have other approaches to some of these challenges. How about we do more preventative approaches? Sensitization has been on our lips daily. Let's sensitize Ugandans. About what? About abuse of nature. Pollution. The only reason why rivers burst their banks because the banks have been weakened. What weakens banks? Farming, agricultural activities done on banks of rivers. The wananchi, the people are ignorant. They don't know these things are scientific. Where are the scientists? Away from being increased salaries, where are they? They should bring this information closer to Ugandans. Are the village teams doing a good job? The agricultural officers? What advisory? Government officers, the RDCs, the what? Go out to the people, the LCs. Tell them about the dangers of cultivating on hilly areas. That these slopes become weak. You can't cultivate on it for 5 years and it's still the same. You're tilling the land. It can't be. It will break off. Let's tell the people. They don't know. Truth be told, people in these localities don't have the right information. They're only looking at issues of survival.
Yes. Because
but we are all congested in Kampala,
yes.
Philomena. The technocrats are all congested in Kampala. I don't know for what. You are another DC of Bududa, but you're always on Kampala Road.
Yes.
You're always on talk shows, from UBC to NBS to CBS to Sorot to.
So they don't relate to the issues.
When are you there to assist these people?
Yes.
Yeah? You look at these politicians, member of parliament, and this is the irony. Member of parliament of these places are always here.
They stay this side. They will go to their constituencies.
They are visitors.
Yes.
Where they represent.
Yes.
How can you be a visitor in a constituency you represent? Because you're the one to carry the information there. You want to tell your people. Your biggest role is not in the August House, is to assist those people. You're not going to be a member of parliament for banana plantations or for coffee sticks or cassava. If your people are dying. And that's a challenge we face with leadership. Leaders are not in touch with the people they lead. There's a big gap.
They come out only, for example, in these instances, they come out when they've heard that this is happening.
And for what? For camera. They are camera happy. They don't want to dance to the gallery.
To condemn, to ask for government intervention,
but
to say a few things in there.
No one, you see, I will side with a member of parliament who says, I have camped in this place, I have brought TV, this is national. Where are they to talk about these issues? Have you ever gotten someone, member of parliament from the Bududas, to come and talk about awareness? Because people there watch. But our leaders are not interested. They are in comfort. For as long as for them they are driving good cars. They are in corridors of Kampala, good restaurants, always meetings, committees. Those committees, serve your people.
They are out of
your
touch
people's
with what's
representatives. Yes. It is incumbent on you that their lives change. You don't have to give them money. You see, some of these politicians are scared that people will ask them for money when they go in these places. It is true, indeed, they ask, but give them some little. But be there. Let them have the right information. For example, you should because in your capacity as a representative, you are an accounting officer. You're in charge of transparency. For example, you can question the government institutions there. There are DCs there. What? Question them. But if you're not doing their job.
Yes, but while we're at it, Felix, and I don't know if this could be the solution probably that we're looking for. Just last week, the Speaker of Parliament, that is Honorable Anita Among, came out to ask government to create a disaster management commission. Now, this commission ideally is expected to take charge and also all the management and responses to the disasters and emergencies that occur in the country. Now, the commission under the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness, I'm wondering how different is it? Is it that now if it's a smaller unit, it will be able to really get the work done? Now, also, what happens to the ministry? Isn't this having two institutions do the same thing at the same time? Are they going to do anything different?
You see, it would look like it's multiplication of roles.
Responsibilities, yes.
You may have to be repeating. But her mind could have come from the fact that she also feels the entire team is not doing enough.
Is not really doing what they're supposed to do, yes.
That could have been the thought that she carries in her suggestion. However, how about we also start looking at disaster preventiveness?
Especially the man-made disasters. I feel like we still have a lot of work to do there.
There are many ways. You see, Mollen was here and she told you clearly that some of these things have been foretold. That there's going to be extreme weather events in these areas. And clearly, we need some science there. How about we focus a lot on the prevention aspect than the management? I don't know if under management could be prevention. That then would be scholarly, but it can pass.
No, I actually think it can pass.
It can pass to have under disaster management. You can have prevention.
Yes.
But this also means that if it needs to be a committee, but maybe also it should come from Parliament, away from just throwing it to government. If Parliament can have such a committee to assist us with some of
because
these.
they actually did ask them to make an urgent report, especially regarding to the interventions that are being done by the government, and present it to Parliament immediately, because of course it's disaster and we're in that period, so we do not know how much more we are expecting.
And what's to come.
Yeah, and what's to come. And clearly it's still a stretched out period. So she came out and asked this commission to really come along with a report, and they look at some of the interventions that have been successful and those that probably could bring success home in terms of responding to the disaster that we are, dealing with. And this is when, again, I would really buy into what you're saying. If only some of these interventions could be preventative interventions, probably we'll be seeing some results. Maybe in the next season where we are looking at disaster like this, we don't have to lose very many people, because as I speak right now, I think the statistics are still roaming around 18 people and dying, and this is not a small number. Even if it's one individual, honestly, I don't think it's worth it losing somebody because of how unprepared we are, because we know that Uganda as a country, especially in different or specific areas, are prone to some of these disasters. But we have feedback coming in here. There is Robert here talking about the funds that would have ideally been put on the funds that would have been ideally put on the side for preparedness are being misused by the people who are supposed to be using them. So probably he's pointing out some cases of
challenges of finance handling.
Yes. And looking at George Okomo saying that I think it's important to increase the budget of the Ministry of Disaster, because okay, I don't know what it is you're trying to say, but I think he's talking about increasing the budget of the Ministry of Disaster because we never know when these things come. So clearly we have to put some funds on the side. And talking about unpreparedness and never knowing when the disasters will befall on these people, we can never prevent them in as much as we would love to. This is coming in from Sarah Nagai.
Sure, we can't.
Well, Sarah believes that we really cannot
giving up so early.
Giving up so early.
We can do something. We just can't say we can't prevent. There have been interventions that are really possible. For example, I've talked some of them looking at like try to relocate these people. That's of course a bit financial, but we can find a way of resettling our people. We have talked about sensitization, about not cultivating on banks and hilly slopes for some time. We've talked about all these, because there are many issues that are human factors, so they can be prevented.
Well, Duncan Mwisho says that the challenge comes with the need to change the mindset of the people in these areas, especially when it comes to relocating. Government also has to put into consideration the fact that there is a lot that is involved. There is family, there is resettlement, and of course other basic needs that people need when they move into these new places and new societies. If government does not think about that, then it's going to be very hard to change the mindsets of very many Ugandans, and therefore we'll continue seeing very many people losing their lives and also looking at very many people losing their property. So we need to focus and prioritize on the need to change the mindsets of these Ugandans.
Is key.
Yes.
And that's quite a very beautiful and lovely submission, that mindsetting that does involve a number of things, and does also involve preparing people and giving them an alternative. Because for us here, with some of, and if you talk to some of these people, it is you who sees the threat. Other people don't. As I've told you, even as we speak now, there are people who are planning on settling in those areas. So mindset is key, and that's why earlier on we suggested, how about we also bring into picture this thing called sensitization. You know, I mean, it's told this, we must give people the right information.
Sensitization before and after. Yes.
It's continuous.
Or yes, maybe continuous.
It's continuous.
Well, there is more feedback here coming in from Helena. This is Helena talking about how it's talking about alternatives. If you don't give them alternatives, they will not move. So whether you like it or not, while you're budgeting and planning, it's very important to budget for alternative areas and how or where they're going to be relocated to. Well, let us know what you think when it comes to being prepared for disaster as a country, as a nation. Do you think we are well prepared for disaster? And if no, what more can we actually do? What areas do we have to focus our attention to ensure that when disaster befalls us, we are in a place that we can manage? Could be financially, could be physically. All of these things are really fully involved in the relocation process to ensure that people in all these areas are able to, resettle in different places that not exactly as dangerous as they are. And there is another viewer here saying disaster experts are on the street and they're very jobless. Everything rotates around corruption. So let's deal with corruption and everything will actually move smoothly. Are these the scientists that we're talking about?
We said it earlier. We said it earlier. The people who should be assisting us in these problems are doing very different things. They are TV presenters. So
well, we'll leave it at that.
The Mollen should be in Bududa assisting people.
But they should be assisting.
And many more of our colleagues out there who are whether experts who can give advisory have not been given a chance, because of probably the wrong people in their offices, also government's ability to employ some of these people, So it's quite challenging. But going forward, as I've told you, it's not only a government problem, it's a people problem, it's our problem, it's a society problem. So all these three parties have a role to play in assisting Ugandans to reduce the number of people we lose to these disasters. Let's be of intention to stop some of these things. For example, local leaders inform you people with the right information. Ministry and government officials deliver the right information, sensitize people. Trust me, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Let's not get tired, because the more we get tired, the more we lose people.
Well, we'll switch to our daily papers. The Daily Nation, starting off with Ruto reignites a fuel tax storm. And civil servants threatened to go on strike over housing fund. How do we have the same problems? And schools reopened today for second term. That is, of course, in Kenya. I wouldn't want to cause any sort of panic right now for the parents. But also looking at more stories, we are not running away, James Finlay says on Cell. And looking at the KQ tragedy, dead in 102 seconds, revisiting Douala plane crash 16 years later. And taking it to the Citizen, coal exports rise to a record high. And you're looking at about 1.5 million, the amount of cargo in tons handled by Douala port from July 22nd to March 2023. How Samia's political will has led to hope for new constitution. And the shortage of qualified nurses bites in Zanzibar. And looking at Sudan battles rage as Saudi hosts talk. That is in the international stories. Well, grab yourself a copy of the Daily Nation, the Citizen, the New Vision, and of course the Daily Monitor to get that and many, many more stories happening on the East African bloc. For now, we will go for a break and Mollen will come in to give us more on weather and climate, our report on that, but also the weather forecast for this Monday. Whether we'll be experiencing some rain, some drizzles, or it's going to be scorching hot. She'll be giving you full intel on that. And much later on, you will be having the GMU agenda as well. And of course, the sports updates will be coming through. Probably we'll hear more about Arsenal and Newcastle.
Arsenal, Newcastle, but there's definitely going to be a talk about Manchester United.
So do expect all of that in the sports updates. We'll be back shortly after the
but
break.
Are they still supporters?
Good morning. Newcastle?
No. Manchester.
Manchester. I am.
Sneakers have been hiding. You are?
We'll be back after the break.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Iwakato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial star 100 star 1 hash. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Yes, good morning, Uganda. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. This morning I will be bringing you more on weather and climate, which we'll look at just a little bit later on. Right now, we want to take a look at the traffic situation on the roads. Now, if you're coming from the sides of Gaba and Zambia, you might want to consider some of the roads leading into central town, and those that could be having much more traffic this morning. Now, starting with Gaba Road, it looks like that is actually having intense traffic. That is all the way if you're coming in from the side of Gaba or also joining into that road. Be ready for that traffic that is actually building up on the junction that is also heading for that is the junction between Gaba Road and Nsambya Estate Road. Now, talking about Nsambya Estate Road, we also do have traffic that is quite intense over there. That is if you're heading into town, so you might want to be aware of that and also, consider it if you're moving into town. Now, some of the connecting roads as well that have a little bit of traffic this morning, you're looking at also a connection between Convent Road, that is as you head towards town, that is also joining into Nsambya Road, that also has intense traffic for this morning. That means that it could also delay you a little bit as you're heading into town. That all connects up to the Nachivubo lane over there. That is as you join into the roundabout on Queensway. That is where you also do have a little bit of intense traffic that is also building up over that area. Now you look at some of the roads that are also joining over there, and that is Queensway as well. Looking it's quite clear traffic actually for this morning. Now that is all the way if you're coming in from the side of Chibuye, Entebbe, and also the side of Makindye. You do have a little bit of traffic building up for that is the Makindye side. Mobutu Road looks like we do have traffic that is building up over there. But also that continues up to Shibuya roundabout, so that you might want to be aware of. And some of the roads also connecting onto Entebbe Road, that is also as you head towards Chibuye Salama Road this morning, looks like that also has clear traffic, except just a small distance away from Chibuye. If you're joining Salama Road, that also has a bit of traffic. But also talking about Entebbe Road, all the way from Najana Nkumbi, you do have intense traffic over there, and actually does stretch all the way from Najana Nkumbi, that is Namasuba, and goes up to the roundabout of Chibuye. So that is actually intense traffic you might want to consider, but also that's only for the side joining into town. But those leaving town using Entebbe Road from the roundabout, it actually gets clear. You also look at the road coming in from Ndeba towards the roundabout, that also has intense traffic, but just a small distance as you join the roundabout. Other than that, it's actually quite clear. That is towards Chibuye area. You also look at some of the roads away from the roundabout. The roundabout is where you have intense traffic over there. Queensway also does have intense traffic. Katwe, that is to that road joining into Katwe, also has intense traffic just as you leave the roundabout. But other than that, you also look at clear traffic as you join into town, so that might actually be okay to consider using for this morning. And of course, you look at some of the connecting roads in there. Really, Ring Road also does have clear traffic, so that is actually okay to use this morning. And of course, continuing with Katwe Road as you head into the main Entebbe Road over to central town, you do have clear traffic over there. It's just a build up of traffic, and that's where you now get to the roundabout in Usafi. That brings in traffic from Zambia, traffic on Entebbe Road, as well as the joining roads also from the upper side, that is of Namirembe. You do have traffic that builds up over there, and of course does actually could take you a little bit of a few minutes as you head towards central town. Away from that, you also look at some of the roads joining in Kafumbe Mkasa Road, that actually does have intense traffic, and you might want to consider that as well as you join into central part of town. Away from that, we'll also look at the weather situation. We'll be tapping in from a satellite over Uganda and look at what we're expecting for this morning and what is already going on. Mostly sunny for much of the country. We did start off with quite clear skies across northern Uganda as well as parts of eastern Uganda. It looks like we're continuing with that for this morning. We're also looking at mostly clear skies for much of central northern Uganda. That takes in areas of Padel, Gulu, Apache, Kitgum as well. Starting off mostly sunny for this morning. That is indicated by the grey colors on the map right there. We do have mostly much of the country actually this morning starting off with the intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now much clouds developing for the islands of Lake Victoria. That also takes in the western side, stretching all the way from Kalangala and over to the shores. That also extends up to Masaka, starting off with mostly cloudy weather for this morning. We're looking at more clouds developing for southwestern Uganda, as well as looking at the Rwenzori area. But we do have a rainy system across the Rwenzori area that is indicated by the yellow colors to blue colors right there on the map, and that is stretching for the side of Kasese as well as Wera. So that is where we do have even a little bit of rains come through, and that system seems to be kind of intensifying, so meaning that we could be looking at more wet weather activities for this morning over that area. Much of southwestern Uganda as well dealing with mostly cloudy weather for this morning. Also that is expected to continue for much of early morning, but again that will be clearing for later on in the afternoon. We'll be looking at more details in the forecast for this morning, and that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority to look at what we're expecting for today in terms of weather, but also the temperatures that we are expecting. Now generally we are at least seeing a rising trend in terms of temperatures. At least we're getting a little bit warmer for much of northern Uganda as well as eastern Uganda, and we can expect that that will still be the similar trend for today. Now looking at the central part of northern Uganda, we have Ajumani, Gulu, Kitgum and Padel. We do expect that as the morning progresses we will have rains over the area, and also starting off with a warm 26 degrees centigrade. Across the western part of Lake Victoria Basin, that is where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai. We do expect that we'll have mostly rainy weather expected over the area, and that will be going for 25 degrees centigrade. Now, well, we do expect that mostly for the western sector, we might be looking at a continuation also of intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, and that is expected over several places, except in the afternoon hours, where we do expect that we might have a development of wet weather activities. Also for the Lake Victoria Basin, we might also be looking at mostly rainy conditions coming in later on in the afternoon, but otherwise we continue with dry weather for eastern Uganda, the central part of northern Uganda, as well as the Karamoja region, where we are also seeing a continuous trend in rising temperatures. But also we know that we still have a rainy season on that will be continuing until the end of May, and that is when we can at least expect that trends will be going down. And of course we have a pickup in drier conditions, which at times it's not that bad, because we also know that there are a lot of farmers that count on that season, especially as we talk about the harvest period that usually necessitate that you also have mostly dry weather. Now, looking at some of crossing borders, we do know that there has been heavy rains in Democratic Republic of Congo, and of course that has brought in a lot of destruction over the area. That is due to intense flooding as well as landslides over the southern Kivu province. Now, what we do know so far is that a lot of property has been damaged over the area, and of course the government did declare state of emergency. Over 130 people are dead in that area, and of course 5,000 homes have also been reported to be destroyed due to the floods and landslides in South Kivu, which is also actually sharing borders with Rwanda, where Also last week we did see a lot of heavy rains that triggered landslides and flooding over the area, as well as parts of Kisoro in Uganda. That is all a shared region that we are actually experiencing extreme weather events. Now, a last similar incident of the similar scale was last reported in 2014, that is across Congo, where about 130 people were reported missing at a time, and that is according to the reports that were given out by the UN. So this has also been quite a hotspot for landslides and flooding, especially when we're talking about extreme weather events. Now, of course, you look at the intensity of it, it looks like now from 2014 even to what the flooding we're talking about in 2023, the intensity is literally almost more than that, because we're looking at more of the extreme events also resulting from, again, heavy downpour that does trigger some of that extremity, but also it does pose a challenge for East Africa as a region, but also for that particular section of Congo, but also it takes in the southwestern parts of Uganda. We also did report this particular incident across Kisoro, where we did see a number of people also losing their lives, property. Same for Rwanda. So now this has at least been, you know, over the years we see that from the start of the rainy season, because they also share the same rainy season, also going from March to May, there are always extreme weather events happening in this particular area. It is no wonder that we're now seeing a call from government asking people to move, especially those living in mountainous areas. We're going to be having much more of these expected, especially whenever we talk about a particular rainy season from March to May, because at least we know that it also does intensify the situation when you're living in mountainous areas. It means that even the, you know, the smallest intensity of rains could actually, as long as they are continuous, they could trigger most of these landslides as the lands get more weak and weak, you know, continuing over the area. So yes, there is still a call for people to be given alternatives on where to live and vacate these areas. We do expect that as the seasons continue year after year, the trend might be the same, especially now that we are talking about climate variability. We're talking about change in, you know, the performance of rains, and also as well as our seasons being interrupted by most of these performances in terms of wet weather activities and, of course, the related impacts. Now, also over there, we're looking at more rampant wildfires that are breaking out, that is across Canada. Now, this is also part of, this is one of the extreme weather events that do come up as we talk about the changing climate. Now, Alberta on Saturday did declare a provincial state of emergency after tens of thousands of people in Alberta had been forced to evacuate their homes as unprecedented wildfires raged in Alberta. Of course, also, you know, bringing in the attention of the U.S. president, the Canadian province over there that is across Alberta also did come out to declare a state of emergency. And of course, they're looking at more of what could happen for this season, as they're looking at just a start of a season that is, of course, dominated by mostly temperatures rising. And of course, you look at the fact that over time, they've also had to deal with wildfires as in the same intensity. And now we're talking about over thousands of acres that have been destroyed by these wildfires. And of course, there was quite, you know, deployment of firefighters on ground, but so far, none of the fire places has been contained. So meaning that we're still looking at much more of that coming in the area, and they could be looking at by the end of the week, because also the agencies on ground are, you know, reporting much more of looking at this could actually be going forth, because temperatures are expected to keep rising. And of course, you look at the fact that you also have strong winds in the area. All that does fuel into bringing more wildfires over the area. Now, so far, the numbers that have been reported from there, we're looking at 25,000 people that have fled their homes, and of course, thousands that have been told to also leave in a moment, of course, not waiting for what the state could actually be preparing. Now, strong winds have been reported to be majorly over the area, and that means that they could be looking at more days. And of course, earlier we did see also the government emergency management committee coming out to say that one of the world's largest oil producing regions, of course, that is talking about Canada as well, has been experiencing a hot, dry spring, which of course did also ignite, the fueling of these wildfires across Canada. But also you look at what has been happening in the past 10 years, and according to also the state's management department, they are looking at more of these disasters expected, and of course so far they have evacuated people from the area, but at least also looking at 122,000 hectares of land that has so far been burnt, so meaning that that could take a lot of money to recover from. And of course they are looking at some of the neighboring territories that could also be affected, especially to the northern area. And of course they still a connection to the fact that this has been, in the recent years, extreme weather events have hit Western Canada as well repeatedly, and of course they are growing in intensity and frequency according to the local state agency. Also, forest fires in Canada have also grown ever since 2016, where they also did have about 100,000 people that were forced to also evacuate from the region. So meaning that even then you had 100,000 people evacuated. Now you're looking at even more numbers, meaning that the intensity is increasing and also the impact that it is causing over the area. And also you look at 2021, where they also did have at least 500 people that were killed from these wildfires. So it is also bringing with it death and destruction over the area. And of course this was followed in 2021, the event in wildfires at this particular time of the year. It also was followed by floods and mudslides that also did kill people across the same area, that is also towards areas of British Columbia. So yes, this has been a recurring event. The intensity is only growing higher, which is what has been also linked to the impact of climate change. We'll leave it at that. We will be having Good Morning Uganda agenda that will be coming up right after this. Later than that, we'll also be taking you through sports, after which we'll go for Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a good Monday.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Kato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial star 100 star 1 hash. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It is exactly 3 minutes past the top of the hour. That is 8 a.m. this lovely Monday morning. Well, I don't know how your Monday has started, but fairly, I would say it has not rained. And of course, for many people in Kampala, that means, yes, we will have the jam, but not as worse as happens when it has rained. And of course, with the potholes on our roads, more so in Kampala, it's easier to maneuver through when it hasn't rained in the morning than what happens when it has rained. I'm Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Thank you so much for keeping it with us here on UBC TV. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now, here we usually have a guest in studios and we discuss issues of national importance. Now, this morning we want to look at the budget for the financial year 2023-2024. Well, what does that mean to you? Is government looking at priorities? Some of the issues we discussed earlier in this show, will the budget factor in that, or is it more so on recurrent expenditures? Are we making the right choices? Think about how much you have to contribute to this budget as a Ugandan. Well, times are hard, but of course that means that we must fund a percentage of our budget, and that money must come from revenue collected. Now, we are looking at a budget of 50 trillion Uganda shillings. And about 28 trillion is going to come from you, the Ugandan, from the tax you pay. 28 trillion will come from that. Then the rest, of course, we shall have loans. But as we talk about loans, then still our debt has increased now to 80 trillion Ugandan shillings. Now, what does that mean? We are going to borrow more, but we still have a huge debt burden. Now, joining me is the man himself. Most of the times, I refer to him as the budget. Because when you talk about issues of the budget, well, that brings in Julius Kunda, who happens to be the executive director of CSBAG. Now, this is a civil society budget advocacy group. You're most welcome.
Thanks, Kirabo.
How have you been?
Yeah, it's been well. It's been well. Again, very happy to be here to talk about an important issue, the budget that affects each and every person in this country. And of course, a good morning, the viewers of UBS.
I don't know why I enjoy when you're discussing issues of the budget, why I'm very eager and very excited when I have civil society. Because there's one thing that interests me. You guys, you're part of the budget process, and so are many, because these days, I think about 5 years, the way it was done, that's consultative.
Oh, yeah.
Consultation processes begin, they go on. The Julius says bring in so much civil society. At the end of the day, we see the civil society that was part of this budget, then standing at a shooting end and saying, but here, so Julius, just to break the ice, what happens really?
No, I mean, you see, people need to understand that a budget is a political tool. It's really a political tool because the political establishment decides where they should put money on and where they should not put money. So it is just a tag, it is a negotiation. I need more money here, and then the other side is that I need less money here. So you negotiate to see how you can come into the middle. So, for example, I could tell you that when the government for example, decided to say, let us introduce a tax on mobile money, I mean, and you record it properly. We said, no, you can't, and we insisted. So they went into the negotiation, and we came to the middle ground. So instead of taxing when you deposit money, when you send money, when you withdraw money, now they said, okay, let's tax withdrawals. And that's the negotiation we talk about. And of course, we don't get all what we want. That's the other part. You don't get all what you want. Is that there are certain things that still remain the way they are. And but that doesn't mean that we should stop engaging government. We definitely keep on engaging government in the hope that things can improve. And a number of things have improved, but of course we still have a lot to do better as a country.
Now, going back to this year's budget, we had a budget of 48 trillion for financial year 2022-2023.
Yes.
Now we are having a budget of 50 trillion.
Yes.
That is Uganda shillings. First, one would say the economy is not doing that very good. But of course, our budget has consecutively been growing.
Growing, yes.
What drives this?
I think there are a number of things that really, I mean, exactly that's what we're talking about. There are certain things we agree and other things we don't. In these current circumstances, I would not have increased my spending appetite. Just let's say it, that if you increase the budget, you are increasing your spending appetite. But as an ordinary person, if you want to increase your spending appetite, that means your income must also have improved.
Yes. And
that's where now we disagree. Your tax base has remained stagnant for quite some time. Even the little that you are collecting, you are actually squeezing the private sector in terms of getting taxes out of them. Because with the COVID, you would have provided more relief, reducing your appetite to spend. So that's where we disagree. That's number one. Number two is that the outlook of the economy and the outlook of the economy, both local and national, really requires you to change in terms of the way you raise your money and spend it. For example, is that there used to be cheap loans for governments, but those are no longer there, and we call them concessional loans. And these are the loans where you go, somebody gives you big amounts of money, $40 million, pay it for a period of 100 years. And the percentage interest is even less than 1%, 0.5%. Now, those loans are no longer there because globally, the financing architecture has changed. People are now looking more internal. You can see at the United States right now, they are still negotiating with Congress to increase the debt ceiling. Because if they don't have enough money to run their operations. So such a country now, before they think about you, they have to deal with the internal matters. You have the war in Ukraine. Everybody is trying to see how to stop it, and money is being channeled there. So you no longer have the liberty to have these loans. So really, I would not be increasing the budget for this country. I would actually be trying to cut down on my spending appetite. That would be the logic. Otherwise, we are now going to go into a borrowing spree. And that for me is a very big challenge that we face as a nation.
Now, that said, of course, we have domestic borrowing and international borrowing. The worst to me is domestic borrowing because it brings us people in business to compete with government, and which, of course, many financial agencies would prefer dealing with government than individuals.
Yes.
But let's look at this budget. Where do we plan to get this money? Because 28 trillion, we didn't contribute that much, it was about 25. But much as URA came up and said we've surpassed, then they were looking at, we estimate in the last quarter we shall be there. Things aren't that very good.
Yeah,
we have proposed taxes. Can we also look at some of these proposed taxes?
Yes.
Will we hit that?
So we have 50 trillion. And domestically we are going to generate 28 trillion. And that includes non-tax revenue. That is the amount of money you charge people for providing them services. If you go to Uganda National Bureau of Standards, you want a license, you pay. If you go to Uganda Forest Authority to cut trees, you pay. So those are licenses. But URA itself is required to collect 25 trillion. And And so where will the money come from? It will come from the proposals government is putting across. Money will come from pay as you earn, taxes. That one has not changed. But there have been proposals that that the government has put in place. For example, they are saying that people who are in lottery business, Kagwirao, I usually hear Kagwirao, it is likely to increase from 25 to 30% for every 100 shillings you get from betting. And but I guess that is really still very low, because because betting being an addictive disease, an addictive activity, you don't have to encourage it so much. You would have taxed it more. So we would have loved to see more of that. But I think the big thing that is coming in is around electronic services. Electronic services is whereby government has come into force to say, let us see how to tax digital services. Digital services such as online trading, for example, online marketing, that's another one. WhatsApp calls, Zoom has already started been taxed. Issues to deal with anything around online platforms. You actually even download the educational materials that are downloaded, all those. The government intends to do that. You have Uber, taxis, all of that. Government is intending to go for that. There is a tax proposal which Parliament is still debating, and that is the unit trust. And the government was saying that for those who get interest of around 100 million, we should be able to tax them 5% withholding tax. And those above, they should be able to be taxed 15% and above. And it has been very contentious, because by the time you get your money to put it in a unit trust. A unit trust is these savings we make. The money has already been taxed. Remember, it has already been taxed. Pay has been cut off already. And now you take it to make more money, and the government is still following you to tax that. In essence, they are telling you, please don't save. It is an unsaving tax. It is a disincentive, really, for any to make money for future investment. So there is also that tax. They have brought also new penalties on a road. So in essence, government is really trying to collect more taxes. But the important element is that these proposed taxes, how are they likely to affect the business community, me and you, considering that we're just getting out of the COVID situation? And I think that's one element where I think government had promised us that there won't be any new taxes in the medium term. That's around 3 years. And we are beginning to see these new tax proposals. Why? Because that's what I told you, is that you've increased your appetite to spend. So you are trying to find all means possible to collect all the money, and now bring these other new taxes. I would have preferred that you strengthen the existing system furthermore, so that if there are any leakages within the taxation system, you do actually collect them. For example, I really support the idea that Entebbe Airport tax collection be enhanced. I agree with that 100%. Simply because it is an entry point, and as such, there are so many goods and services that are going through Entebbe Airport. So border post, that you enhance.
Julius, that well said. When we talk about saying strengthen, tighten the gaps so that you are able to tax. But let's also look at Uganda's tax base, because one would say there is so much out there that is not being taxed. You have a great growing informal sector. Look at how possibilities of taxing this, much as your area has come up with a number of, if you look at companies, individuals that pay tax, look at our population, the working population, you still find that we aren't doing good. If there's so much of leakages than just saying, you know, we have few people contributing to the tax base, yet there is so much of a working force that we've not been able to tap into to get taxes, and we're just increasing the burden on these people and tightening more of the gaps, instead of saying, how do we tap into other alternatives? Look at this rate tax, house tax. Seems to have almost failed You know, people have their rentals, people have, so some of these initiatives, how best do we ensure that the burdens that does not rely on a few individuals, but we broaden our net?
Part of broadening the taxation is building trust for the taxpayers. That's part of broadening the tax, because if I know I have been paying taxes, but I know you have been very reckless in spending my taxes, then I will try to my level best to avoid paying taxes, because I know the money is going to be misused. And that is something that government is failing to achieve. So because of that, everyone is trying to see why you should. You see just a difference. In your own groups, your own friends, when you have a problem and say, guys, let's do this. Everybody comes in very quickly, they put the money together and it is done and finished. When COVID had come, the passion that Ugandans had, the first round of COVID, how people were contributing, even 5,000. It tells you that when people trust the system, they will definitely be able to pay their money. And government needs to build that trust in the first instance, so that instead of people, you know, of the opinion people have, we say somebody has stolen money, is a king. People praise you because you have stolen the money. But the deeper inside the part is that because they know that actually other people have been stealing and nobody has been getting them. So building the trust among us makes us, give us the responsibility to ensure that we pay the right taxes. But if, for example, and you rightly said, if you go to rental taxes, for example, you find some pay, others don't. So why will I continue paying? So that's one of the areas I think URA needs to look at that. We talked about informal sector. And the definition of informal sector, I think, is also misleading, because people think informal sector are our, our aunties and friends who are carrying, small kiosks on the head. No. The informal sector in this country involves people with billions of shillings under their mattresses.
Sure.
Yes, because they don't want to get into the system. You can't be an informal sector person and you import a container worth 80 million Ugandan shillings and you still claim yourself to be an informal sector person. No, it just can't be. So a mechanism must be put in place, just not to hunt them, but to incentivize them so that they can be able to get into the taxation bracket. And I think this is an engagement we have engaged with URA. The moment you register with your team like this, the next email is to warn you about the taxes you're supposed to be paying. But you must build the relationship to say, yes, you've come into this. We can help you to grow your business. Once your business has grown, then we can be able to tax it. So the proposed taxes definitely, I think, in our view, is that they are likely really, they have not come at the right time. People are still struggling. The business environment, the interest rates are very high. We had started with inflation, and you see what inflation did. When you have inflation, you increase the central bank rate, and then when you increase the central bank rate, then that means the interest rates in the banks are going to increase. And that's where private sector should have got its money.
Because you are believing you had to reduce money in circulation.
Yes, so, and you can see the impact. In US, almost 3 banks are under closure. Just simply because they increased the interest rates by almost a 50% margin. So it affects businesses. Businesses need affordable credit to grow. And if you don't do that, if this budget is not providing that particular environment, then we're in for a very, 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 very long haul.
But in the previous, or the budget soon ending for the financial year 2020 to 2023, we had a lot of avenues to revitalize, to revamp these businesses that we are talking about today. There was so much money put. We had 200 billion put to help the SMEs. We had money in Uganda Development Bank. Almost everywhere there were monies put to ensure that they act as shock absorbers and help these businesses grow. So must we say this money was not put to proper use? Must we say the period was so small? Because government, yes, we can say it's not a good time to introduce new taxes. But then if you look at how much it invested, the amounts of money that government put there to help these businesses thrive, it's still good monies, I must say.
I think government really has done its part in trying to put up across opportunities and avenue for CMS business to grow. The SMSC fund you are talking about, 200 billion, has actually not taken off because the terms were very stringent. And I think this is also a conversation we need to have. Do you want to provide a facility where people can default and taxpayers' money is lost? Because I've gone through it. First, they say, if you're a business person, and this is an incentive that government should front to the informal sector, if you want to benefit from affordable credit from government, because their loans were below 10%, first of all is that have books of account properly laid out. Be registered. Pay your taxes, whatever it is. Have a resident. Then you can qualify to do that. But in some instances is that when you do that, 90% of the companies don't qualify simply because they are briefcase companies, they have their, they don't want to pay taxes, they don't come into taxation light, they don't keep the books of account, everything is done in the head, on the calculator. In that circumstance, it becomes difficult really to, otherwise you would be putting me on the spot, just you promised, you said they should put this money, now all this money has just disappeared. The same thing I think we are discussing with the PDM. So there is that, but also there is when you put so much, the measures are so stringent that probably nobody can even qualify for that.
I remember the spokesperson of Kasita, that's Kampala Traders Association, Issa Sechito, he said, we don't know who this money is meant for.
Exactly.
Because when I look at my members, it seems none has gotten this money. Now, its intention, you rightly explained, saying this is taxpayers' money, we can't just give it out. But if this fund has not kicked off till today, and now this is where we think we should have a vibrant private sector for us to be able to get revenue. But you're saying the people we assume should be contributing revenue, their businesses are not registered, and these are facts. They don't have permanent places of where you can say this business is here. There is so much that is wanting, yet now where are we heading to?
So, and I think probably we are being polite. Are we providing the right solutions? I think that's, let's just be, we are being, are we providing the right solutions? And maybe to say, please, money is here, come and pick it, maybe it was not the right solution. Probably the right solution was to train our business agencies to be competitive. Probably that one would have now helped them to be able to say, okay, if I want a loan in a bank, I should be able to have a good loan history. To have a good loan history means that, you know, a number of things must be put in place. So people try to do that so they can be able to have that particular incentive. But there is something you asked about government borrowing money domestically, and yes, I think what we have liked is that this time around, government is abandoning the domestic sector, the domestic market, which is very important, and we are hoping they can continue doing that. They are shifting from 5 trillion this financial year, they are borrowing from domestic sector. Next financial year, it's going to be 1.5 trillion. And I think for me, that's a very good measure, because it is going to send a signal to the financial industry that the government is no longer interested in this money, but in the outside money. So this money now is likely to be available for local guys. But with borrowing comes the big challenge, of course, with the debt. And as we said, you have 50 trillion, you are likely to raise 28. And URA is going to raise 25 maybe. So where would the rest of the money come from? So you'll borrow it. But the current status in which we are in terms of our debt distress, our debt risk portfolio, is that we've shifted from a raw risk to a moderate one. Because of number one is that our portfolio at 80 trillion has increased. Number two is that the 50% threshold we gave ourselves, we are above it. But I think there are 3 fundamentals that we need to also to look at in debt. Number one is that for somebody to know you're in debt distress, a number of things begin to happen.
Yes.
One, when you begin to borrow for operational expenditure. Because here borrowing is for development work. You borrow for the road, for schools construction. You don't borrow for salaries or pensions. You shouldn't borrow for buying vehicles or for your non-operational costs, no. And Auditor General is telling us that the last financial year, we borrowed 2.4 trillion for operational purposes. That is a signal that if you cannot address your operational costs, and you have to borrow to do that, it is a sign that your debt management practices are beginning to go down. The second one, I think, which the Auditor General also mentions, and I think which is very important, is that, you know, auctions have calendar days. They have calendar days. And they are meant for purposes of predictability. But if you borrow in non-calendar days, it means that a problem has come to you today and you need the money today. So the only option you have, you don't have any money in your reserves, on your buffers, or everywhere, you run to the market and you borrow on a non-auctionable day. And that's just another bad signal. The last signal is when you begin to renegotiate your debts in terms of, I'm unable to pay now, because when the debt has matured, it will be paid. But you say, I'm unable to pay, can I pay you tomorrow? Now, in business practice, that would not be bad. But if you begin to renegotiate and put forward money and it becomes more every financial, it is increasing. It's an indication that our debt portfolio management could probably be having some stress levels into it. And I think that's why I was telling you that we need to reduce on our spending appetite so that these kind of practices don't appear and our economy can be trusted by investors to say, yes, we can come to this country because they have the capacity to manage the economy very well.
Now, talking about borrowing, are we borrowing for the right reasons? Are we setting our priorities right? For example, Julius, I believe infrastructure is very important.
Yes.
And for a great period, our government has invested in infrastructure. But then sometimes I find that when we look at the repair period or the outcome of this infrastructure, I know infrastructure is hard to calculate how it brings in money. One would tell you when we spend billions, we borrow for our airport, when do such roads. But I've seen roads in this country that I don't think even if we gave them 20 years, 2 decades, the money spent on them would come back.
But that's part of
because yes, you might say we are going for infrastructure. I know of a road, I won't mention, this is national TV, but the youth there wake up evening time, they either dry cassava on this road or they come and they sit, and fun enough their backs are the ones facing the road, so they're not even looking at the vehicles. But that road costed us billions of money for that road. I know of a lot of investments where we've borrowed and even it's clear our loan from here, but the repay period, even if you're to tell us, okay, people are going to move on this road, bring goods to the market, it's going to improve this, maybe it's taking tourists to a certain destination. But do you think, aren't we being deceived? Even when you look at this budget, you're going to see a lot of borrowing in the sector of infrastructure. We've invested in dam after dam, dam after dam, electricity. But you ask Ugandans, how many of you, apart from having a bulb and light, yes, that may be good for fighting insecurity, maybe, because there's light available. How many are using this electricity to pay back to the economy? I know of places where wires are just passing through the entire village.
Because it's expensive to connect.
Yeah, passing through the entire village. You look at which house am I seeing a cable going to this house. But these are factors we are borrowing for.
I think the question of whether we are borrowing for the right reasons is, I mean, some is yes, some is no. Because I don't know if I've ever given you we used to have a Mukene project that was supposed to increase consumption of mukene in Uganda. So immediately you would say, okay, well, really, this project, how is it going to benefit us? But there are projects, I mean, let's talk about roads. I think roads, I mean, as a country, infrastructure is very important. I think let's agree on that. Infrastructure is very important. We need roads, we need water, we need electricity, we need schools, we need hospitals. I think that is the key for any country to grow. You must make sure that you are linked. Markets are linked. People can move up and down very well. The challenge we are having, actually, there are two major challenges. Our capacity to implement this project, but also the cost of these particular projects. Now, whereas in other countries you find that a road can cost probably $700,000 US. In Uganda, actually, a road is between, a kilometer is between 3 billion, that's 1 million plus, 3 billion to 20 billion Ugandan shillings. So depending on how you negotiate, then you get a road. So when the cost is too much, we'll never pay it back. We get into a debt trap. The second one is the capacity to implement the projects. And this is very serious. Why? Because already we have 15 trillion of undisbursed loans. It means an undisbursed loan is the amount of money that you've gone to the bank, they've given you the money, that I'm going to spend it. You come back home. When you reach home, you have no capacity to even write a check and say, please let me start building this particular road. So we have 15.5 trillion of undisbursed loan. It means we have no capacity. But what still is that when you've contracted a loan and you have not used it, you start paying commitment fees. Commitment fees means that this is the amount of money you pay for a loan you have not used. And currently, for the last 5 years, we have spent around 395 billion on just commitment, on the commitment fees. So we come back to the drawing table and say, what should we do as a nation? As a nation, I think we need to cut our losses. Me and you, we know you are running a project. You are spending it on every day. It is not bring returns. You will sit one day and say, you know what? Let me cut my losses and leave this project. So when you, for example, you look at, there is this road of Kampala-Jinja Express Highway. We got money from UADB. 3 years down the road, we will not spend a single coin on that particular road. The money is there, done, finished, we signed, they are there. When do you take this money? 3 years down the road. We will not take the money. And we know how that bad road is, Kampala at even Kampala to Mukono, we know how bad it is. So those are the scenarios you begin to put yourself and say, okay, what's wrong with my country? What can be done? And that's why I say that we need to cut our losses. So when I see a contract cancelled, for example, I say thank you very much, because whether I'm paying it right now, I'm paying more money on it in terms of commitment fees, but it was going to cost me more if it remained on our books. But better still that when this contract gets away, I have a fiscal space, probably to do the right things that I want. But here in this country, nobody has the guts to make that painful decision of saying, I have cut my losses, this should go. Why? Because the politics enters, the project is managed by my son, my daughter is the accountant, and we keep on losing money as taxpayers. That's why I always say, we don't need 50 trillion Ugandan shillings. We need half of that. Half of that can help us to clean the system and deliver the things we want.
Well, we are still having an insight into the 2023-2024 budget for that financial year. And very interesting is that our budget, of course, we've had an increment from 48 trillion for the financial year 2020-2023 to now 50 trillion for the financial year 2023-2024. And of course, that means that domestically we mean monies that are going to be collected from you within here, within Uganda to fund our budget. We are looking at about 28 trillion if URA can do us a good job there. But also, our debt burden is increasing. Of course, we surpassed our ceiling, but also our debt stands at about 80 trillion, money that we must pay to those that borrowed us this money to finance, to run a number of projects, to have Uganda the way it is and better off. But Julius, when you talk about these loans, we have the right negotiators. Because I've seen our Minister for Finance coming up and sometimes apologizing. Them making a statement, this was a bad loan. I'm not so much into big business, but I do some business. And of course, I take loans day in, day out. But there is a bad loan, you know, and you ask for yourself, because you look at terms and conditions, but then someone says, you had no other alternative. Then you talked about cancelling contracts. When our negotiators tell us, if we dare to cancel, it's more risky, the penalties we are going to get.
No.
We'd rather continue this way. Do you remember when we were talking about our airlines and all the funds? Remember what happened?
Yes.
Said, if we make a mistake now, and we don't raise this money, and we say we cancel, the outcomes are so heavier than if we did so. So we are hands tight, let's go for this.
And you've mentioned it rightly. Do we have the right negotiators? When you go to Solicitor General, to the General Chambers, every contract has a termination clause. Every contract must have a termination clause. And on termination, you negotiate the terms. Because you see, when I'm with you in the business, and it's your fault that you are not performing properly, it shouldn't be my loss. So there are contracts where you know that once you terminate, these are the costs you will be able to pay. And those that's an international agreed. So there is no contract that cannot be terminated. Let us not be right. All contracts can be terminated, but of course, at what cost? But as a country, when you have a 3-year project, 10 years down the road, you have done 0. There is no miracle that the next financial year you are going to do something. So cut your losses. Pay the costs of terminating the contracts now, because they will be far less. In fact, if you had terminated 5 years before, you would not be in this particular situation right now, because you would have paid less than paying in the next 10 years to come. So negotiators, definitely, we need to improve on that. But also remember, you are negotiating with who? Let us be realistic. You are negotiating with who? Look, a Chinese contractor will come and say, you don't have money. You say, yes, but I can build that road for you. I will look for the money myself. I will get the money. You will sign that you will pay back that particular money. Let me tell you, that is going to be the most expensive contract. Because the person who is going to build the road is the same person who has negotiated a loan on your behalf. Which means that if probably the cost of constructing 1 kilometer was going to be $500,000, there is nothing that's going to prevent this person from making it 1 million Ugandan shillings. So negotiation, I think, requires we need very, very, very strong people in that particular area, that the negotiating team must be the right ones. But also is that sometimes we should not even blame negotiators. We should also blame the way we design our projects. Why would you want to negotiate a loan when you are not ready to start implementing that? You know, I usually bring the famous the tree scenario with UNRWA. They had a loan, they want to construct a road, it reached somewhere, there was a tree in the middle of the road. And the owner of the tree said that, please, you have to compensate me. And the owner had thought that it is a tree like any other, but that tree had spirits in it. So you are not only going to compensate the owner, but you have to compensate the spirit.
Though the owner didn't get what he had.
And our valuation has no criteria about compensating spirits. So somebody wakes up and says, I want 500 million for the spirit. How do you say no? Because you don't even have it in your formula to compensate spirit. So those are some of the things you need to have put in your mind and say, okay, right of way. Part of the reason why we have not built the Kampala-Jinja Express Highway, we are unable to compensate people, because the cost of compensation is even more than the cost of the road itself. So as long as we don't deal with that, because you get the money, but you can't, as long as you don't deal with the right, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have in this country, is to compensate people on right of way. So when we don't do that, I can tell you, there is nothing that we are going to do. But let me also emphasize, borrowing is not bad. Kirabo, you know that. It's not bad.
Yes.
It's not. Every country, every individual, if you ever get a list of bankers in this country and you want to look at people who have borrowed, the rich people are the ones actually who borrow money. So borrowing is not bad in itself, but it is what you are borrowing for that is quite very important, and your capacity to execute a project on time and on budget. When you don't do that, then you're in this trap that we are in at this particular moment. So Borrowing is that it is important that we are ready, and I have always stressed government. We don't invest in readiness. We just think that we are going to fix this plane in the air. Let the money come, and we shall sort things out. And it doesn't work like that. Especially
and what is interesting, once money lands, then preparation and fix, and then we must spend this money still within a given period of time, or it goes back to the treasury. All these make things messy. But of course, time seems to be flying so much, like our debt burden is doing this morning. But Julius, let's also look at key priority areas. One of the things that hurts me most times when I see the budget come out is what percentage of our budget goes to debt servicing. Then also, as we talk about the budget, by the way, sometimes by excited, they have allocated this amount of money. I've seen a lot of MDs, they are defending their budgets. But we also ask ourselves, if such a ministry has been given this amount of money, how much is going to service delivery? Because that's another key. Yes, we fight for these huge budgets, but at the end of the day, a lot of this money goes to salary. A lot of this money goes to run, and service delivery is very, very little.
We recently had a calculation and found out that more than 75% of the local government budget is wage and non-wage.
70?
More than 75% of the district local government budget goes to wage and non-wage.
Oh.
And so little remains for development, for development work. Our biggest challenge actually is that spending for service delivery, I think, is becoming more of a challenge. Spending for service delivery requires you to look at the delivery mechanism. How much are we going to spend to local governments? Because local government are at the forefront of service delivery. And we find out that this current financial year, we are estimating that they are likely to get 9% of the entire national budget. So again, most of them stays at the headquarters. And I've always challenged myself. An ordinary person, where does an ordinary person get health services? They should be at the local government level. An ordinary person, where do they get water? They don't come to Kampala. They should be at that particular level. So these services are very key and very important. But we can't leave this discussion without talking about PDM, of course. And PDM is one way of trying to really run away from all of these bureaucracies and say, let's send the money to the local government level, but not only at the district, but at the parish level. It's a very good idea, and I think it's just suffering from what we talked about, our readiness. Because the idea comes, everybody jumps on it, but we forget that you need to get ready to execute such a national program, because it's very huge to prepare.
I remember a man called Julius Mukunda, who was with me one time on a TV talk show on Uganda's biggest network, and he told me, Kirabo, I'm very optimistic, very hopeful that this is the magic bullet we've been waiting for. Now I said, but Julius, do you think that this time we've mastered the art to perfect it? No, this is a different project. The implementation, Julius. I don't know if you're the same person. No, but I stand to be corrected.
No,
what happened to your magic bullet? Because I wanted to save you this. Because from the 26th, when it was launched, February, when it was launched in Chikubi, till today, you hear we've dispersed this amount. Of course, one will tell you development may take time. It's a process.
Of course, yeah, that's true.
But do we see light at the end of the tunnel?
No, the light is there. The light is there. I think there are two things really for me. One is to take the responsibility and be able to apprehend, because like any other government program, you have people who are thieves who are going to steal the money. I think we needed government needs to ensure that we discipline people who really contravene the laws of this country, especially in disbursing services. If you have you see, because we entrust civil servants, so if you have a cow who sits with his planners on the table and plan to distribute money among themselves, really, by now, these people should be rotting in jail. But if again now, but that's why I blame the IG. If the IG comes up and say, okay, fine, you start to, please, can we also sit down and negotiate on how you can pay me back my money? That sends a very wrong signal to any other person who's going to support this program. And this program is being affected simply because of indiscipline. It's good, everybody wants it, but indiscipline is the one that is killing the program. Because remember what I was saying, that we would like, when you have a port at the national level, then it is expectable for a minister is traveling abroad. There is no money, I pick from PDM. If a PS has a shortfall in his budget, you pick from PDM. But once it was decentralized, the understanding is that people should be able to, you reduce this hand, invisible hand. So one is indiscipline with the public service system. I think that needs to be the second one, I think, is in a preparedness. That's why SACCOs have money on their account, but they are not spending the money because they don't have the guidelines. So have such a huge program, we needed to have invested in preparedness, and then we are able to roll it out. So what
do we do with this excitement of this is a new program? Second, money is now available, because when this budget, we put so much money as we wind up.
Yes.
We are going to allocate so much money still to this PDM. Every parish will get 100 million. This is increasing gradually, and more is coming.
Even the next financial year,
yes,
we have budgeted for another 100 million for these parishes. I think two things should be done. Number one is that let us open it up to the public scrutiny. And I think I would love to see dashboards at the parish level. Kirabo, Julius, whoever has received the money. And then, because you take transparency and accountability down to the citizens, I can tell you this is going to be corrected. But let us build the capacity among the implementers so they know exactly what they can do. Because right now, SACCOs are still seated with the money because they lack the guidelines.
In a minute, your concluding remark.
Just to let people that the budget is coming to conclusion. It's now our duty and responsibility to ensure that we participate in the budget process. There is the good, there is the bad, there is the ugly. We should all know that and work towards the ensure that we have a proper budget. Ministry of Finance and Civil Society Organization are organizing the National Budget Month, which is going to start. Actually, it's likely to start towards the end of mid this month, for purposes of increasing visibility about the budget. Every Ugandan has a right to participate in the budget process. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Julius. Mukunda happens to be the Executive Director, Civil Society Advocacy Budgetary Group. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And of course, we hope that Ugandans will pick the love and interest. When we were young, the budget was something that everybody was excited. The day it's being read, people were, but today, it is a different story. Well, Ruben is here to take you through sports. I'll return in the next hour. Good morning.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.